You've asked this question about what happens to me, what happens to who I really am if I'm not in the physical body. And I would say, what happens to the person who is having a dream? You're in the middle of a dream, and then suddenly you wake up. Well, what happened to the thing you were during the dream? It just sort of vanishes.
We're stuck in metaphor, and that's where we get into all this trouble, because we think of it going somewhere. But how can it go if there's nowhere to go? There's no, I could say, well, my consciousness goes from here to Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where I'm going to be. That's where my consciousness is going to be buried, because I like the Memphis blues. Or my consciousness goes to the planet Mars because I always wanted to be there. But it doesn't go anywhere because it doesn't have any place to go to. It is omnipresent.
If we study the concepts particularly of Hinduism and other belief structures that are tied to the Sufi belief and the Zoroastrian belief structure, again we find that those belief systems, beyond the shadow of a doubt, believe that we remain in body. When our soul dies, our soul is exited out of our bodies, and our souls will live again in a body.
The Eastern mystical point of view, and what I think quantum physics is suggesting to me anyway, is that that's not the whole answer. That somehow matter comes out of mind rather than mind coming out of matter. And that changes things. Or maybe better put, both mind and matter are different illusions of this deeper reality, which is neither mind nor matter, but somehow both.
So quantum mechanics has been around all of the 20th century. It is the major development of the 20th century that has allowed most of our physics technology and our new modern technology to be what it is. It also allowed the thinkers of the period to realize that body-mind were interactive, and that maybe we were going to have to look at consciousness after all within science. Whereas before it had been considered the realm of theology and philosophy.
One of the concepts is that consciousness itself is a non-local phenomena. That means in consciousness we are unified everywhere, every when. It is our focus of attention or our alignment, what we pay attention to in one particular moment. Right now I'm paying attention to being in the body. But that doesn't mean that I don't exist everywhere, every when. All particles, all things have these dual components, a local manifestation and a non-local existence. So perhaps then being more than our physical bodies is identifying with, paying attention to that non-localness of who we are.
So existence and information are the basis not only of our being, but our knowing, and why we know anything at all.
Spirit is the fundamental vibration of nothing. But by nothing I mean the absolute void of which everything comes. It's the spiritual vacuum, if you will, the void out of which everything arises. It may be related to the physical vacuum, which we know is capable of, once being energized, of producing particles and antiparticles, which is the particle-antiparticle circus, which arises from particle physics that we know about. Because mind, consciousness, this mysterious essence of who we are, doesn't have a space-time coordination. The common thought is it's as big as the body, and it lasts as long as a lifetime. You're born, you live, and then you die. And then your body decays into dust. And before that you were just dust and eggs and water, and starts fertilizing in DNA and blah, 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 and all electrical sparks start flying, and pretty soon there's a fetus, and the fetus becomes a baby, and all of that, you know, is somehow the notion that consciousness is contained within the unit of the body.
So basically, when our soul is new, when our soul is young, is born, we might say, we are assigned a spirit guide. That guide then works with us, whether we're in body, whether we're not in body. That guide has higher wisdom, is almost always more experienced as a soul than we are, sometimes dramatically more experienced, sometimes only minimally more experienced, depending on how quickly we progress.
I feel that each of us has a group of guides that assists us and helps us in our daily life. However, my clients tell me that they often meet a master teacher guide in their life between life experience who is responsible for overseeing their soul's progress from embodiment to embodiment. And this guide may or may not be intimately involved with their daily life, but is responsible for overseeing their progress over many, many lifetimes.
Can't scientifically prove any of this stuff, of course, and that's where anybody who's scientifically and logically and rationally minded will dismiss all this as being, you know, if it's not scientifically provable, it doesn't exist. Of course, you have to take into consideration that most of the things we do in life are not scientifically provable. And in fact, the stuff in life which is scientifically provable is probably less than 10% of everything we do. But yet we rely on scientific provability as being much, you know, importance in our life. We look at anecdotal evidence, and there's so much of it right now. Death experiences, children that are born with memories of aunts or uncles or even grandparents that had died years before the child was even born. There's many cases of this in India, of so-called reincarnation memories. I don't know, if you read these accounts, they seem to be pretty sensible to me.
And that has allowed us now to take quantum physics and start to explore it in quite a new way in the last several years, and to open brand new doors that have never been opened before in understanding ourselves, in understanding the deepest realms of bio-nature, and understanding consciousness itself.
I have woken up in other people's bodies. Now that's really weird. Where I know I'm not in my own body. Where I'm looking through another person's eyes and looking out at the world that they see, and it ain't me that I'm seeing. It ain't my world that I'm looking at. One time, I woke up, got out of bed, went to take a whiz. And I walked inside in the bathroom in my log cabin, stood on the toilet, just about to pee, and suddenly I realized I didn't go to sleep in a log cabin. There's no log cabin where I was. What the heck am I doing in a log cabin? And that's when I realized I was in somebody else's body. He was whizzing, and I was there watching.
More and more mainstream America, if you will, are opening to these type of experiences because so many people are now having them, or recognizing they're having it and being awake to having them. I think there's a coming together of, let's say, science and spirituality. It seems that it's more of a coming together of that. And when I say spirituality, not necessarily religion. My father was a successful businessman in New York back in the late 40s, early 50s. He was the producer of over 50 radio shows. And being the left-brain successful businessman he was, when he started having these out-of-body experiences, he really questioned what and why was this happening to him? What was this out-of-body state? So he looked to Western science to give him the answer, which is how we came up with the process known as hemisync, which is a sound technology. And in using certain frequencies in the sound technology, combinations of certain frequencies, we're able to help people move into these different states of consciousness, different states of awareness.
We have means to let people know they are more than their physical body. And knowing you are more than your physical body is the beginning of knowing that you survived physical death.
He influenced a lot of thinking, and because of his books, a lot of people began to experiment with out-of-body experience. I think I got influenced by it because it no longer became something I didn't recognize when it happened. The problem is, until somebody like Robert Monroe steps into the world and says, this is something that happens, people don't try to do it. They don't. It may have happened to them, but they don't. It's like a blur. You don't see it. When somebody says, "Ah, this is that," then you begin to recognize it when you have that experience.
The ability to tune into this consciousness, to become aware of your out-of-body state, I think is the true question. It's not who has the ability to get out of their body and who doesn't. It's who becomes aware, who has the ability to become aware.
I think the very first time I was floating above my body, and I was near the ceiling, and I could see the ceiling very clearly, and I turned her. I kind of like started to feel myself drawing down. I don't know whether I was afraid or didn't know how far I was going up, or how high I was going to go, or whether I'd go through the ceiling. I don't know. Some fear mechanism probably drove me back down. When I got back down again, I remember trying to get my hand inside of my body. It was very unusual. It's like my body was a glove, and I couldn't get my hand to fit inside my thumbs. Everything was a little bit, helter-skelter for a while. And I finally got my little finger into the little finger space, and everything kind of fit in. And I fit in.
And when astral projection is happening, the question I would personally wonder is, the soul that's incarnate who is experiencing the astral projection, are they projecting into the spiritual realm, or are they projecting into the space that I believe exists closer to Earth, and the space that is between being incarnate and being fully in the spiritual realm and what we experience in life between lives regression?
The only thing we ask you to consider is that you are more than your physical body. Just consider that. And through that, the HemiSync technology helps you really move into knowing that. Not just believing it, but because it's able to put you into a relaxed state. First of all, that's the key of anything, is to move into a totally relaxed state. And once you're there, you begin to open up and expand into the energy that you are, which is more than your physical body.
And we've known for years and years that when you can be in that very deeply relaxed place, then we let go of our defenses, we let go of blocks and obstacles that perhaps get in the way of exploring, and so from that place of deep relaxation, then we can open up to all kinds of possibilities.
Ancient cultures have been doing this through rhythmic drumming, through dance, and through chanting and rituals for thousands of years in many, many, many cultures. The technology of stereo and Dolby Digital surround sound is something new to the 20th and 21st century. We have found a way to use that modern day technology to do what cultures have been doing for thousands of years. We use an audio guidance system to alter brainwave states, accompanied by relaxation procedures and meditative procedures that allow people to develop an awareness of information and concepts not ordinary to our waking state. This is the bridge for opening a gateway for the out-of-body experience.
The out-of-body experience, the classical kind of out-of-body that others might call astral projection, may be important for some people and may occur for some people, but it's just one piece of a whole range of possible experiences that would be useful in helping one to come to know better their total self.